I'm going to welcome onto the stage some pretty impressive characters from Glasgow City Region. I know we've been describing it as Scotland, but actually we're going to have a chat about what's been going on in the innovation space in Glasgow. My name's Stuart Patrick. I am a non-exec director here at Connected Places Catapult. I'm also, in my day job, the Chief Executive of Glasgow Chamber of Commerce, so I know these panelists incredibly well. Glasgow is, well, I suppose that's got something of a track record in urban economic development. I think it's a good debate to have the extent of that. But there's a variety of things you might look at Glasgow since the 1980s and say city branding, labour markets, the invention of the intermediate labour market programmes in Glasgow, using culture, sport, conferencing as catalysts for economic growth. But perhaps a little less known is the track record that we've been developing in the innovation ecosystem and the contribution that that work is having on the city's performance. Just as a very brief summary, Glasgow City Region's population of about 1.8 million. We're 10 years into a collaborative regional governance structure, pulling together 8 local authorities. We do not have city mayors, and so we operate in a much more collaborative structure between our local authorities. We have an economy of about 53 billion GVA. It's an employment base of about just under 900,000, and the growth rates in Glasgow City Region have been beating the Scottish national growth rates since around about 2010. So there is a track record building in Glasgow City Region that we can explore. Now, to do that, I've got this stellar panel, and in particular, I'm delighted to be welcoming to the podium, or to the stage, the most influential decision maker in the region. As the leader of Glasgow City Council and as chair of the Glasgow City Region Cabinet, Councillor Susan Aitken. Susan's led Glasgow since being elected leader in 2017 and has been heavily involved with the CPC through the climate focus of the 3CI, the city's Climate Investment Commission. She's led Glasgow in the delivery of COP26 a couple of years back, and is also the chair of the Global Resilient Cities Network. Next up, delighted also to be welcoming a face I know very well from work we've done in Glasgow together, Dr. Susie Meryl, who is the programme manager who leads the work of the University of Glasgow's Riverside Innovation District. And she took her doctorate in cancer research at the university and has a very strong track record in building innovation ecosystems. And then next up, and certainly not least, I'm delighted to welcome Meryl Levington, who represents the University of Strathclyde. And Meryl is the Director of Innovation and Industry Engagement and plays a strong role in supporting the growth of the city centre-based Glasgow City Innovation District and the airport-based Advanced Manufacturing Innovation District. So we've got quite a lot of chat to have about innovation and in particular the role of innovation districts. But we've only got half an hour, so we're going to be very swift here, and I'm going straight into conversation. And I want to kick off with Councillor Aitken and ask you how you might describe the progress that Glasgow's made in building an innovation economy, and how important the partnership structures and the leadership that you've displayed has been to that progress.
Yes, so I think you're right that the innovation side of things in Glasgow has maybe been a wee bit under the radar. What we've been known for over the past 10 years, perhaps, particularly, is big events, big global events like COP26, but the Commonwealth Games and things of that ilk, and culture and sport, and a lot of that did lead Glasgow's regeneration and recovery from the probably among the most brutal processes of deindustrialisation that any city in Europe experienced. And we still live with the legacies of that deindustrialisation today, both in terms of physical legacy on the actual fabric of the city, but also in economic and social legacies in communities, still very, very deeply embedded. But the innovation part has kind of emerged through this partnership approach, this ecosystem that has developed between the city and the city council with its kind of convening power, I suppose, but crucially very forward-thinking and very active academic partners in the universities of Glasgow and Strathclyde in particular, but there are 3 other universities in Glasgow city centre and also a very strong further education college sector. But the creation of innovation districts within Glasgow, which have multiple purposes. They have the purposes of commercialising the research that's coming out of the universities, creating those spin-outs to create jobs, to have that real-world impact in the city economy. But also they've been really connected to the regeneration of place and addressing inequalities within the city region. So there's a nice sort of symmetry that's come around of Glasgow's record of ingenuity and invention coming back to the fore again and being deployed in a way that is directly addressing some of the challenges and some of the particularly negative legacies that our communities still live with from that era of deindustrialisation in the 1970s and 80s. And I'll let Susie and Meryl talk about the detail of what's happening within the innovation districts and how the universities are leading that. But I think what's been really great is the universities themselves have brought businesses, industry leaders to the table. We're all now sitting around the table, yourselves at the Chamber of Commerce as well, and civic society. We have this quadruple helix. The principal of the University of Strathclyde has for a long time, Professor Jim MacDonald, has talked about the triple helix of city, academia and industry, but more and more civic society and Glasgow's communities are becoming involved in that as well, in the work that has been done in actually building up from the ground these innovation districts in places that are part of that and have really experienced that deindustrial legacy. So the Glasgow Riverside Innovation District in Govan, the Advanced Manufacturing Innovation District out in Renfrewshire, slightly further out bit of the wider city region, but another part of the city region which still lives with significant challenges from the past 40 or 50 years or so. So there's something there that I think is particularly Glaswegian, but is still able to make that contribution well beyond the boundaries of the city and the city region, and is driving that GVA increase, that growth, innovation-led growth, but inclusive growth as well, right across the UK.
You've got 2 governments to deal with. Is that helpful or is it a hindrance?
Both. I think it's going to be, it is already proving to be somewhat easier since last July. It has got easier. It was very, very difficult to get them both in a room together previously. Having said that, we were able to use, although, as Stuart said, we have a different governance structure, I would argue a very successful governance structure which has proven its worth of a collaboration of 8 local authority leaders who ensure that there is that direct connection between the most cutting edge innovation coming out of our universities and the communities that we want to deliver those direct benefits for, as well as for the macroeconomy. So that collaborative leadership generated some real success. So we were one of 3 regions in the UK to get that innovation accelerator funding from the previous government, which UK government, which has now been extended by the new UK government. And we used that again with leadership from the universities and from industry, used that in a way that was really, really informed by that intelligence on the ground from the collective partners about what was happening in our economy. And I think we've been able to demonstrate to both governments that what we are doing works, that we're able to deliver, that they can trust us, that they can just direct power and resource towards us. To put it very crudely, what we want is powers from the Scottish Government and resource from the UK Government. That's the pitch that we're making to them just now. It can be challenging. They are coming from often quite different policy points of view, but where we are now, there's much closer alignment than there has been, well, ever in my experience. We are now being able to create a tripartite approach between 3 different levels of governance, all with the same outcomes in mind, which is driving that inclusive growth, making sure that it's innovation-led, but that also that innovation has that direct connection back to people in place.
Brilliant. And I'm likely to come back to the inclusive growth question a little later on, but can I turn to you, Susie? Prior to your role with Glasgow Riverside Innovation District, you were the Exec Director of Glasgow City of Science and Innovation, promoting Glasgow's role in building innovation ecosystems. Could you say a little bit, not just about the specific role of innovation districts? I'm asking you to look at that as well, but the building of an innovation action plan, you were involved quite strongly in that. Can you say a little bit about that, and then tell us a little bit more about Glasgow Riverside Innovation District?
Yeah, so I guess before, I don't know if, can you hear me okay? So I was there for sort of 10 years. So it was Sir Kenneth Calman, who was the previous Chancellor of the University of Glasgow, who kind of set that up out of a frustration that actually Glasgow's kind of research capabilities did not match Glasgow's reputation kind of globally. So there was something in City of Science and Innovation that pulled together kind of cross-sector kind of key players within the Glasgow City region who all had a stake kind of in innovation. And it was something about us being the storyteller, I guess, kind of for the region. So the positioning of the region, pushing that kind of out there. But something that we didn't have, I suppose, for a while was a directed regional innovation action plan that was quite operational. So that pulled on all of those strengths that we had within the academic sector, industry, government, and broader. But actually that had sort of tangible actions behind it. A lot of, I guess, whenever we saw sort of innovation action previously, it maybe been kind of knitted into kind of regional economic strategies rather than a kind of underpinning action plan itself specifically for innovation. So our role in that, I guess, was to support the development of that. But I suppose importantly, our tendrils went out to the broad ecosystem in the region, actually beyond the region too. But we were able to kind of bring in startups, we were able to bring in the universities, the colleges and others to really get behind that, to have early buy-in for that regional innovation action plan to actually influence what was in it. And for us to really understand in terms of sense of place, what was working and what wasn't working and where the gaps were and how we might fill those gaps. And that action plan is broad and it looks at infrastructure, you know, critical infrastructure that we require to kind of drive and push that innovation economy forward, but it also looks at inclusion and inclusive growth, and very pertinent to our own innovation district where we have you know, such diversity of people and geography and socioeconomic issues kind of within a relatively small sort of geography. That is something that is really important for us to sort of connect into regional economic vision and make sure that our innovation districts we're all heading towards the same sort of economic goals, but we're supporting that through, I guess, these particular structures that have emerged over the last 5-6 years. So yeah, so our role really was to convene all of the partners that would need to drive this innovation action plan, which was really novel, I think, within a city region to sort of pull all of that together and get that early buy-in, and now going to be involved in co-chairing that inclusion strand for the Innovation Action Plan.
Having delivered that action plan in partnership, you then went on to lead the programme work for the Glasgow Riverside Innovation District. What's an innovation district in your mind? And tell us a little bit about GRID's role.
I mean, in its most simple terms, I guess, the innovation districts are connecting our sort of strong research base to public, private and social enterprise, and really trying to sort of, I guess, create more businesses by sort of connecting kind of those key elements kind of within the ecosystem kind of at large. So we need to be able to translate more of our R&D kind of and to have sort of impact, you know, in terms of kind of productivity, the economic growth kind of broadly, but also we need to look at social value. And again, that is something that is of particular kind of interest to GRID, and that sort of civic, that greater sort of social value kind of opportunity, and to look at long-standing issues of place and how we can kind of bring these things together through driving forward kind of productivity and the innovation economy sort of generally.
Meryl, if I can bring you in now, you've got 2 innovation districts to champion. You want to say a little bit about the role, the respective role of those, perhaps maybe drawing out a bit on the private sector role, businesses' involvement?
So we have 2 innovation districts, as Stuart has said. The first is the City Centre Innovation District, Glasgow City Innovation District, and that's now 5 years old. It's well established, and that's right in the heart of the city centre. So if you come to Glasgow, and please do, as a relative newcomer to Glasgow, I think it's a real hidden gem. You know, we're right in the city centre of Glasgow, so you come out of Queen Street Station into George Square and you're in the Innovation District. It sits very much at the heart of the city, so it has retail, it has, you know, it has some deprived areas to it, it has an international financial district, and then it has the university and its technology and innovation centre. And really, the role, as Susie had said, is for us to push that research out of the university into the community in partnership with those players in the ecosystem. So we work very closely with the International Financial District and partners there to bring investors in, to support you know, those spin-outs. We work very closely with professional services, again, promoting that, you know, the growth of those businesses within the Innovation District, but also with planners and infrastructure providers, making sure that we have the relevant accommodation, specialist labs, office accommodation for all of those businesses in the city centre. And we work very much in partnership with the Chamber of Commerce and the Council on that planning and working together to bring everything together on that. But the other key aspect is people. So it's working with those partners, the private sector partners, to make sure that our graduates have the right skills. They have a say in the development of our future programs, you know, within our business school and within our other faculties, particularly engineering and science, that we can respond to their needs to train their staff in that continual professional development, you know, and it really is a two-way partnership. They're supporting us to support those businesses and those spin-outs, but we're also supporting them to retain talent and to develop talent. And then we move on to AMIDS, and there are all the same issues around people, but it's a very different place at the moment. AMIDS is relatively new. It's a greenfield site. So a lot of the work going on at the minute is with large infrastructure players, you know, so it's with people who are going to build out there. It's with the local authorities out there, looking at how we get the roads and the transport to get people there, but also then attracting and making sure that the offer is right to get new companies in around the emerging technologies. So the particular focus out at AMIDS is advanced manufacturing, so space, medicines manufacturing, hydrogen, semiconductors, and then also the digitization of existing, particularly engineering businesses. What do we do to make manufacturing more productive and more digital to make it more efficient in the future? And so that's then also working with big industry players, you know, the likes of Rolls-Royce, for example. We've got part of our facility within a Rolls-Royce facility. It's working with forging companies, you know, helping them look at, you know, there's a particular issue with titanium at the moment because we can't get titanium from Russia. So it's working with people within that materials science sector to develop our own approach, our own compound that will replace the titanium that we can't get at the moment.
Splendid, thanks very much. I'm going to just divert a little bit onto looking for innovation in a more general sense. There's a lot of discussion in the city about how we use innovation districts to grow sectors and to develop new technologies that answer questions in a variety of policy areas and industrial need. We've got some very bold aims for Glasgow City region in productivity improvement, in achieving inclusive growth, and indeed in delivering on sustainability goals. So, Councillor Aitken, if I can maybe ask a little bit about what you see some of the biggest risks that you're facing in achieving those goals, and what you think some of the most radical innovations are more broadly that we're going to need to be successful.
And so, we're start with the risk. I mean, one of the biggest risks from the point of view of a local authority, a public institution, is the availability of capital to underpin a lot of this. And it's, we're having very advanced conversations with both of our governments to address exactly that. Glasgow is halfway through, but really well into the final delivery phase of our city region city deal. We were one of the first in the UK. It was all signed and delivered in 2015. And you can now you can literally see on the ground the impact of that city deal. You can cross the River Clyde from the north to the south, from Govan, where the Glasgow Riverside Innovation District is being developed, to the other side of the river for the first time in decades now, because we've built a bridge there. And is that kind of enabling infrastructure investment? There's still an enormous need for that in Glasgow. The Clyde corridor has a whole swathe of post-industrial land, which is probably the biggest development opportunity in Europe right now. It's probably the last remaining equivalent in the UK of something like the London Docklands on at least that scale and that potential. But there's not a bit of land there that doesn't need something done to it first before it can be developed. It needs to be, it's either undermined, or it needs to be detoxified with post-industrial chemicals, or because it's along the river, we need to fix the quay walls under the river in order basically to hold it up, literally to hold it up. And we were able to use our city deal for a lot of that work, but to be honest, it's only scratched the surface. And so if there isn't a clear pathway for flows of that enabling infrastructure investment, which also enables us in the public sector to de-risk investments for the private sector to come in, then I think that is a danger to the momentum that we're seeing in Glasgow just now. There is definitely a risk there that the private sector will go, actually, do you know what? Everything that's happening in Glasgow is fantastic, but it all looks a bit difficult. So we need to be able to provide those guarantees and that surety. And there is something about us as the public sector having the confidence to go into places where just now there is nothing and say, we believe that this place could be an amazing place. What it needs is a bit of upfront investment, then a partnership, a long-term collaboration, and a focus on transformation and the shared outcomes that we want to get from that. And we've got lots of examples of that in the city, so that we can point to and demonstrate to people. We could do it 100 times over what we've already done, but we do need to see that coming. And so, we're having really helpful early conversations with the National Wealth Fund, for example. I'm maybe going to be a wee bit pejorative and say that there's been quite a lot, although it's been really good to see such a flow of announcements coming from the UK government, there's maybe quite a lot of announcements without necessarily policies attached to them. But I think there's an opportunity there for those of us who know these places and know the potential of them really well to say, we can help you build the policy around that will really have that impact and really drive the leverage of the public sector investment in terms of then private sector investment and growth and an uplift in GVA. So there's both risk and opportunity there for us in Glasgow, I think, and but keeping that momentum going. The little bit of risk on the other side of the coin with the Scottish Government, and again, I think we're seeing the change there, is that because of the scale of Scotland, and the Glasgow City region is a third of Scotland's population, there is a tendency to sort of do things for everywhere at once. And everywhere in Scotland has to move at the same pace. The Scottish Government is now beginning to understand that isn't actually helpful, that those who are ready and again, where those who are able to deliver the biggest impact, whether it's in growth, whether it's in decarbonisation and reduced emissions, whether it's in reducing inequalities, whatever what the particular outcome or suite of outcomes it is you're looking for, actually front load your investment where you're going to get your biggest bang for your buck, and then actually the benefits will flow to the rest of Scotland and indeed beyond. Obviously, I'm going to say you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck in the Glasgow City region, and that's what our very strong message to both of our governments is just now.
Of course, you would be right. Susie, if I could just ask a similar kind of question, but what kinds of policy innovations or initiatives would help you grow your innovation district faster?
Yeah, I mean, just to give a bit of background to GRID as well, it's absolutely relevant to what Susan was just saying. So GRID is anchored by the University of Glasgow, so we're roughly sort of 700 acres. So we run from a sort of cultural quarter, which encompasses BBC Scotland, Scottish Exhibition Centre. We run through the West End campus kind of the university, all the way down to Govan and Lint House, and Govan being one of the most deprived areas and has faced this deindustrialisation. But does provide this amazing opportunity. So we've got roughly 85 acres of vacant and derelict land. There's also the challenge of multiple landowners as well as the requirement of the remediation of that land. But it's a massive opportunity. 17 acres of that is in proximity to our existing R&D assets. Now, we have got about 30 spin-outs at the moment coming out of Glasgow that is attracting a huge amount of investment, something like 70 million in the last sort of year and a half. But they need somewhere to go. We don't want them to lose them. We need them to be sticky to the region. So we need the right infrastructure to keep them there. Our specialisms, I guess, are particularly in sort of critical technologies and health tech for the University of Glasgow and for GRID. And both of those things, actually, both of those types of facilities are actually really expensive because you need the right fit out. Also, whilst investment zones and Innovation Accelerator have been amazing for Glasgow, one of the things, again, UK government needs to also look at is the differentials in terms of place. Our lab premiums are much lower than in London, for example. And so there's something about that in terms of that de-risking major infrastructure in Tier 2 cities like Glasgow. And so, yeah, that's something that is of particular importance to us now. University of Glasgow has a 1.8 billion sort of capital investment programme. So with the right support, the opportunity to redevelop that vacant and derelict land for Govan and for Glasgow sort of more broadly is really important for us. The Health Innovation Hub is a flagship project kind of for us, and a really nice example combining University of Glasgow leveraging UK government support through Strength and Places funding, but also that industry co-investment through Cadan Science Partners. One of the things that I think is really, really important, though, is master planning a place for local people that is mixed use. So we're not, our Director of Joint Property Ventures calls it, we're avoiding plonkism. So we're not just plonking a research institute and not thinking about sort of place and local people and local benefits. So one of the things that we're doing specifically in terms of the Health Innovation Hub, and this is again the beauty of us working with the city so closely with Scottish Enterprise and others within further education, we are co-designing a new precision medicine and health qualification that will create an employability pathway from the local college into the Health Innovation Hub to provide employability for local people. And we're hoping that that type of model can be replicated for other industries.
Great.
So yes, that de-risking, I think, of infrastructure for us and thinking about the differences of place in terms of things like lab premiums are really important.
In about one sentence, Meryl, the same question to yourself, what would make a difference to the growth of the 2 innovation districts that you're
Well, I think, as Susie said, it's that you know, that funding for infrastructure, you know, for the specialist labs, for the clean rooms, to make sure that we can house our spin-outs and keep them within the region. It's, you know, we're facing really the same problems. Just because it's in the city centre or out at the airport, no difference really.
Thank you very much indeed. I'm afraid we couldn't give you any time for questions because we only had half an hour. And I thought you'd want to hear from the panel in a little bit of detail. So can I ask you to thank our panel for their contribution this afternoon? Thank you.